Anybody else have any issues? Okay, so we're not going to worry about that chapter. All right. So then, why is that so big? I don't want the Zoom thing to be so big. Let me minimize that. Okay, so and then we did chapter 18. And then let me go to the chapter quizzy on that. Can you see it, or did we lose the
I only see you right now.
Okay, you don't see the chapters. Okay. So let me do what is going on with this Zoom thing? Okay. It's over here. All right. Expand it. That's too big. Make it smaller. Zoom thing is being weird. Okay, I think Louis is okay. Louis, you're doing stuff. Okay. Hey, Louis, are you there? You got control of the mouse. Okay. All right, now that looks better. Okay, so let me see. Yeah, the voice is on. Okay, so chapter 18, Quizzy Wizzy. You all can see the book now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yay, yay, yay. Oh, you know what? We don't do chapter 18 Quizzy Wizzy in the book. So you don't have to do that one. Down here. Okay, so we get actually right into 16 and 17. These chapters work hand in hand. It's appraisal and then the real estate market in general. So they work hand in hand with each other. And on the state exam, there's 8 questions. On the school exam, there's 8 questions. So this chapter is very important. So there's a lot of vocabulary that you're probably unfamiliar with. So that's going to be important for you all to know. And so the first thing we talk about, anytime you see, hold on, let me move this thing out of the way. Anytime you see the initials FIRREA, this is a regulated financial transaction. And it means the person is applying for a loan that the government either guarantees or insures, like FHA and VA loans. And if the government's going to back up the financing, then they have very specific rules about the appraisal and how it's done. So what happens, remember you learned in chapter 1 that you as realtors are allowed to perform appraisals as long as you charge a flat fee and it's not based upon the value, like a percentage of the property. And that's true. But when the people are getting a government backed loan, FHA or VA, the government doesn't want anyone except a licensed appraiser, specifically a licensed appraiser, to do the appraisal. Not that you do a bad job, maybe you do a better job than a licensed appraiser, but everybody wants to point fingers and blame somebody. So a way that the government tries to cover their you know what, they say that, okay, before we give a loan and we insure it or we guarantee it, we want to see that a licensed appraiser has considered the value and found it to be, substantial enough to cover the loan. So anytime you see the initials FIRREA, it means that the financing is through one of those government agencies. And so then a licensed appraiser must do it. However, there's always an exception. And the exception, and this is going to sound weird, the exception to all of that is unless the property has a de minimis value. De minimis. Let me type that in there and see if I can spell it right. Add a comment. Okay. Let me type this. De minimis. It's Latin for of little value, meaning insignificant. And what is insignificant? Anything that they say is worth less than $250,000 is considered to be insignificant. So if it's insignificant value, then a licensed real estate agent is legally allowed to prepare the appraisal legally. However, the appraisal will probably be rejected by the underwriter. So there's a person called an underwriter that reviews all of the loan documents to see if they're accurate, like to make sure that people just didn't make up their W-2, and they go and they call the employer and they ask for verification, and they check every little thing that's on the loan application to see if it is accurate. And those people are the ones that usually get in the way of the closing of the loan, because they'll say, we need this, we need that, we need this, we need that. And it's frustrating. So even though the law says a licensed sales associate or broker can prepare an appraisal as long as the value is less than $250,000, even though it's legally allowed, the underwriter probably will say, nope, don't want it. Go out and get another appraisal done by a licensed appraiser. So anytime you see FIRREA, it means it's a government-backed loan. When it's a government-backed loan, they want a licensed appraiser, with the exception if it's of insignificant value, under $250,000. If it's a conventional loan, it's up to the lender whether they accept the appraisal or not. Can you see the thing that I typed, or it doesn't show until I hit post?
I see it.
I see it.
Okay. You see it as I'm typing it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let me just move that out of the way. Okay. So anytime, again, you see FIREA, it's federally regulated. And this is just repeating exactly in the book what I said when it's a loan that's a government agency, FHA, VA, or if Fannie, Freddie, or Ginnie are purchasing the loan, you have to follow the guidelines, which are USPAP. Come on, thing. And USPAP stands for Universal Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. And they want a licensed appraiser to do it, even though there's nothing illegal about you doing it. On the state exam, how will they ask? They might say, which of the following appraisal assignments can a real estate licensee perform? And then it will give a list: commercial property or loan from the VA or whatever. So that's what that is. We learned back in chapter 1 that chapter 475 is the chapter in the Florida statutes, the laws that have to do with real estate. And there are 4 sections. And we learned that back in chapter 1, we learned that part 1 has to do with regular residential. We learned that part 2 is all about appraisals. We learned about part 3 and 4 are about commercial property, whether it's a sale or a lease, getting paid commission. So that we learned before. We also talked about before in Unit 1, a CMA is different than a BPO, which is different than an appraisal. They all look kind of the same, but CMAs and BPOs don't have to follow the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice because they are not appraisals. Only appraisals have to follow that. We're going to learn there's three ways to appraise property. So we have to know some vocabulary words. We have to understand the concept of value. There's a difference between what something costs, the price that we try to sell it for, and the value that people perceive it to be worth. So cost is what it took to create it. Price is what we try to sell it for. Worth is what people actually think it's worth and end up paying. So you could try to sell a house for $2 million and maybe it costs $4 million to build it, but nobody likes the design and they think it's worthless. So all of those three things can be true about the same property. It costs $4 million, the price is $2 million, the value is zilch, or the value of the land itself. The word value has a lot of different meanings, and you just look at the word before value to know what they're talking about. So assessed value, we learned last night, is what the property appraiser says it's for, just about charging you property tax. Insurance value is what an insurance company believes it's for in case it was destroyed or damaged. Investments on your school exam. Investment value obviously is what it's worth to an investor. And everybody could look at the same property and each person could have a different value depending upon what they're looking for. So the insurance company is going to say it's worth this, an investor is going to say it's worth that. The property appraiser says it's worth something else, and all of them are correct because the value is whatever the person, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Whatever that person values it to be is what it's worth to that person. And then after everything, maybe the buyer doesn't think it's worth anything. So to that person, it doesn't have any value at all. Liquidation value is if you had to have an emergency sale, kind of like a fire sale. Going concern value is the value for a business that still is open and operating. So if you buy a business that's still open, it's worth more money than a business that's gone out of business, because when you have an open business, the next day you expect to make money because all it is a change of ownership management. The business is still operating. The customers don't know any different. They keep coming. That's worth more money than a business that is shut down months ago and it lost all of its clientele, like a hair salon. If it's still open tomorrow, you'll make money. If the hairdressers are still working, the clients are going to still come. But if it's been out of business for 6 months, people went somewhere else and found another hair salon. So that's the difference between going concern. Salvage is if the property's been destroyed, can you find anything to save? So salvage, literally picking through the wreck and seeing, can you save anything? If the building's destroyed, can you save the iron pipes? Can you save anything, the wiring, whatever? So that's the different values. Anybody have any question on any types of value or the concept of value?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, market value is the most important one for your state exam, and it has a very specific definition, which is right here. Market value is, the most probable price a property would bring in a competitive market. If it's a fair sale, meaning it's not under distress. So if the person's filing bankruptcy or, someone died or, they can't make their payments, they lost their job, the price for that property is going to be different than the normal price that it should go for every day. So when you do an appraisal, you have to look at what's normal in the market. An appraiser has to look at what's going on in general. And if the property that's being sold is out of the normal, they don't use something odd to compare it to. So an appraiser has to find at least 3 houses that have sold recently in the neighborhood and then compare it. And you try to compare it to something identical, but property is unique and you're never going to find an identical house. Even if the same builder built the same model, you know, the wear and tear and the lot size, things are different. So they look in general and they look at the sales. So let's say you look and there's been 100 houses that sold in that neighborhood in the year. You look at what's the normal in the middle. You don't look like at the super cheapest. You don't look at the most expensive. That's something odd. That's not the general market. You look at the middle ground. If there's 50 sales that are somewhere between 200,000 and 250, that is the normal value for that neighborhood. And every neighborhood's different. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Sorry, somebody is in my house and I got scared. I wasn't expecting. Sorry, you guys. That was a silent visitor. All of a sudden I saw the face. Okay, sorry about that. So you look at what's normal, what's the average in the area, and then we're going to show you techniques on how you calculate what that house is worth. And there's nothing perfect about appraisal. Everyone has a different opinion, and that's all an appraisal is. It's one person's opinion. You don't like it? Hire another appraiser and get a different opinion. So we look at what things affect value. And we learned this in another chapter before. We talked about it. So demand, if people want it, then the property goes for higher than normal. Vice versa. If nobody wants it, then the property is worth less or worth less. Utility means usefulness. You have a piece of land that could be anything built on it. So the piece of land is more useful if it could be used for different things like commercial, industrial, etc. Then you have scarcity. You got the last Coca-Cola in the desert or the last suck of the mango. If you can't find another one, if it's hard to find one, it's all about supply, right? So if you got the last one, you can ask whatever you want for it. And if there's people that want it that bad, they'll pay more than normal. Then transferability. If the title is clean and it's easy to transfer the property from one person to another, that's what transferability means. So those are the things that affect value. And don't confuse that with the other things we talked about before when we discussed supply and demand. Principle of value. This is an important key concept. The basic idea of appraisal is this principle of substitution. If all things are considered and this property is similar than the others, then whatever other people paid is what this person should pay. That's the theory of substitution. So, you know, if I find a bunch of apples and somebody says, I want to buy an apple, how much would it cost? Well, how many people, what did people pay for these apples? And it's similar to the apple you want to buy. This is the price of apples. So that's the theory of substitution. So something is worth what other people are willing to pay in a normal market where no one's desperate. The highest and best use is another concept. If you look at a piece of land, the appraiser is supposed to imagine what could this land be used for legally? Like, is it only residential, or is it could be used for commercial or multifamily, etc. And whatever would bring the most profit back to the seller is its highest and best use. So if you have a piece of land that's zoned for, let's say, commercial, and a builder's saying, what should I build here? Okay, I could build an apartment complex. I could build professional offices. I could build a parking lot. I could build a gas station. It's all commercial. What should I build? Well, what would make you the most money? So an appraiser is supposed to imagine what would be the best use for this piece of land. It has to be legally permissible, physically possible, and financially feasible. So legally permissible, so it has to be zoned for the right thing. Physically possible. So if you say, oh, let's build a 200-story condo on the beach. First of all, it wouldn't be legally allowed. Second of all, even if it was allowed, it probably wouldn't be physically possible. It would fall down. And then financially feasible, it has to be something that would actually generate the most income possible. So highest and best use is that. So with the choice, if they say, should I build a shopping center, an office building, an apartment complex, a garage, a parking lot, a gas station, what should I build? An appraiser can analyze what similar things are selling for and say, hey, I advise you to build a gas station, for example. This would be best in this area and bring you the most money back. So that's an appraiser's job, is to imagine even if there's something already on a piece of land, the appraiser's job is to say, hey, is this being used the best way? And if it's not, the appraiser make notes on the appraisal that, yeah, for example, downtown Orlando, there's an empty piece of land off of Orange Avenue that's been empty forever. And, downtown is a busy area, and that piece of empty land is cat corner from the big movie theater that's right there near Church Street. And that piece of land is empty, and I always wonder why somebody doesn't put a gas station or even a restaurant right there, or let a bunch of food trucks park there or whatever. So currently it's an empty piece of land. But I found out why the thing hasn't sold in all these years. Over 30 years it's been empty that I know of. Downtown, next to that piece of land, does anybody know where I'm talking about? On Orange Avenue, near Tanqueray's, across the street from Tanqueray's, there's an empty corner lot, been there forever. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. So usually that's where the hot dog truck is, and when you're drunk after you get out of Tanqueray's. So, makes me want to have a shot now.
Right across the street from Stogies, right?
Yeah. So next to it is short buildings that are only two stories high. Across the street is the big bank building, and on the other side is like the Grand Bohemian and all of those things. So this one lot is connected to historical buildings. And, like the Church Street area, how that whole area on Church Street, where the Cheyenne Saloon and all of that old area, it looks like kind of like Old West. The buildings are only 2 stories high. So that's a historical thing that they're trying to keep the character of that. And so that empty lot, whatever you build, it can't be higher than 2 stories. And the facade has to look like that old style. So that's not so good, not the best use out of that land. So that's why it's still empty. So highest and best use is the job of the appraiser. So if it's currently used as a parking lot, an appraiser could say, well, the value is this as a parking lot, but if you build this, it could be worth so much more. And an appraiser actually can note that, and the developer can decide to follow their advice or not. Okay, this is almost stupid. Increasing and decreasing returns. If you make more money back than you invest, it's an increase. If you make less, it's a decrease. Return means return on your investment. Like we learned yesterday, A times B equals C. B is return on your investment. So if you make more than you invested, it's an increase of return. Less, it's a decrease. Conformity. By the way, this is all vocabulary. We're going to do the math part, at the end. So conformity is another appraisal concept that says properties are more valuable if they're similar to each other in the area. They have a harmony. They, not to be cookie cutter, But you know, when you drive through a neighborhood, let's say they all seem to be Mediterranean style, you know, or classical style. When you go through Baldwin Park, mostly is that colonial style, the plantation style, you know, with the columns. If you find a modern house in the middle of that, it looks weird. Like in Winter Park, it was very weird when on Temple Drive, there was one modern house in the middle of all of these different classical styles. So it's not good to be different in real estate is what they're trying to say. It's better to be homogeneous, to fit in. That makes your house more valuable if it's similar in size, in quality of construction, in style, design. It's more valuable. Unique is not good in real estate. So that's pretty much the opposite of what we think, right? Okay, assemblage is when you combine more than one lot together and sell it in a package. And plottage is something interesting. Assemblage, the fact that you sell more than one piece of property together is called assemblage. If they're side by side, what do you think? Do you think selling lots in a package side by side is more valuable than selling a package of the same number that the lots are all in different places? Which one do you think has some extra value?
The combined lots?
Yeah, the ones that are side by side. So let me give you and let me show you what I'm talking about. Document, whiteboard, share, continue, new. Okay, so imagine if I had this neighborhood and we have the street and we have, imagine this is OBT. And, you know, here in the corner, we have the public shopping center and, you know, all of these different commercial properties. And then, you know, we have a neighborhood and, you know, let's say there's different lots. And then we have this big parcel and then we have some more. Okay, just to make up some stuff. Okay, I'm going to sell a package of 5 empty lots. So I randomly select this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, and I sell it in package A. Package B, I sell 5 lots, but they're side by side. Do you think there's any difference in the value of the packages? Do you think one's worth more than the other? Well, it depends, right? Not necessarily. So assemblage is the fact that I sold them together more than one lot. Package B, because they're side by side, if you find the right buyer, and this is OBT, so it's commercial property, that would be more valuable to buy it side by side because they could build like a big dealership or a mall or a shopping center. So if, and I said if because it's not always more valuable, but if the side by side ones are more valuable, you call that plottage. So going back to the book. Dun, dun. Okay, so the word assemblage is just the fact that they're more than one. The word plottage is if it's worth more, it has plottage. So if they're worth the same, they're assembled, but there's no plottage. If one is worth more than the other, plottage exists. Are you guys okay with that definition? Okay. This is funny, progression and regression. It's kind of like increase and decrease. I don't think you need me to explain it, but I will tell you. Progression is when your property value goes up because all the neighbors are good. Regression, if your property value goes down because all the neighbors are down. So if I have the nicest house in the neighborhood, not good for me. If I go to sell it, because of all the neighbors' junk, it's going to bring my property value down to the junk because people are going to be living in the neighborhood with junk. Vice versa, if I'm the eyesore of the neighborhood, but all the other neighbors take good care of their property, it's immaculate, then my junky house increases in value because the neighborhood's nice, that people care. So I'm the oddball, and people say, oh, I can take that property and fix it up because look at this neighborhood. So progression is when it goes up, regression is when it goes down. Okay, we're going to talk about the word appraisal, and there's 3 types. There's sales comparison. This is used for residential. There's cost approach, which could be used for residential, but more of the time it's commercial. And you should make a note of that. So if they say on the question, what type of appraisal method should you use for appraising a house? Well, you would do sales comparison. If they say, come on. Okay. Cost approach could be either residential or commercial. And I'm going to explain why in a moment. And then income is only if the property is generating income, which means it has to be a rental property. So these 3 methods are different depending upon which property. So which one is the most common and the normal type of appraisal most often used? What's more property sold? What type of property is sold the most?
Residential.
Residential. So the most common one used, and that is a state exam question, what is the most common approach to value? And that would be sales comparison. So what it means is you compare that property with other properties that have sold recently in the same area. It doesn't have to be same neighborhood. It could be like a mile radius. So that's what it is. So you look at what other people bought it for, and if that's what people are willing to pay, that's what it's worth by the theory of substitution. It's worth whatever other people are willing to pay. Now, cost approach could be used in residential because maybe you can't find 3 properties similar. Maybe it's like David Siegel's house over in, what's that neighborhood he lives in?
Isle of Capri.
No, not Isle of Capri, Islesworth. Isle of Capri and Isle of Tuscany, those are Winter Park, but they're at Lake Butler and Islesworth and that kind of thing. So he has a, whatever it is, 28,000 square foot house. Okay, there's no other house like it in the neighborhood. His house has 3 bowling alleys. It has, you know, so many parking. It has so many kitchens, and the other houses don't have that. So it's not fair to say, oh, 3 others in the neighborhood, because they're all so different. So what you do is you could do cost approach, and cost is when you calculate how much it costs to build it and add the value of the land, and that's what it's worth. Of course, they add some profit to a builder, like 20% on top of that. So that's cost approach. Now, cost approach is most likely used in commercial property. So imagine I'm trying to buy a movie theater, like in South Chase. I'm not going to find 3 other movie theaters within a mile radius. Even if I did find them, they're not going to have the same amount of seats. They're not going to have the same amount of screens or design. They're going to be different square footage. So the sales approach doesn't work because I'm not going to find 3 others. It might work for gas stations, right? But it's not going to work for commercial property. So income approach is exclusively if it's rental property. And when in income approach, what's interesting is They don't really care about the building. It's not about how many square feet or how nice or how old. It's about how much money can it make. Because to an investor, all they care about is how much income it produces. So we're going to learn the difference. For example, an investor has an empty piece of land. Does he build one house? Does he build a duplex, a triplex? Does he build a small apartment complex? Well, depending upon how much he can rent it for, that would make the decision, is the investment worth it to that investor? And every investor's answer is different, because some investors are looking for a quick turn. Some investors are comfortable with like a 10% income. Some are looking for anything more than the bank pays, which is, the bank barely pays anything. So the answer is different for every situation and every single person. That's why I say appraisal isn't perfect. Its beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. It's like art. It is what it is worth to the person who's looking at it. Any questions about any of all that?
No, ma'am.
And all of you, just because Dorian gets it, if you don't get it, don't be shy, don't be embarrassed. It's your opportunity. It's your class too. Okay? Because Dorian, we know he's got experience. He already had his license before. Besides the fact that he's sharp and quick and gets it quick. Okay. So now we're going to start talking about the sales comparison approach in specific. We already said that it's finding 3 other properties that have recently sold. They call that comparable sales. And the house that you're appraising, you call that the subject property. The other houses it's being compared to are called comparables, or comps for short. We're going to learn how to make adjustments, but you should write this down. Never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever change the subject. It's like your mama said, don't you change the subject with me. The subject never gets adjusted. The subject is the thing that you're trying to determine how much is this thing worth. You compare it to the other ones. The comparables might be better, so you need to bring it down to the level of the subject, or it might be inferior to the subject and you want to bring it up to the level. And what do I mean by that? So it's not like you just make them all the same value. You have to compare apples to apples. When you find 3 houses that have sold in the same neighborhood or the same area, those houses might be very different from each other. Your subject property, for example, is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. But the other houses that have sold are a 5-bedroom, there's a 4-bedroom, there's a 4.5. This one has a pool, this one has a guest bungalow. But this one is just a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with no pool, no fence, and it's small. You can't expect to get for this what people are selling the others for, because they're far superior to the subject. So mathematically, on paper, you have to make these properties seem the same on paper. How do you do that? So if this is 3-bedroom and you're comparing it to a 4-bedroom, you have to figure out what is the bedroom worth? What is each bedroom worth? So let's just pretend it's worth $20,000. So if this one sold for $120,000 because it has 4 bedrooms, what should this one sell for that's missing a bedroom? And the bedroom's worth $20,000 in this example.
Maybe 100,000.
Correct. So what you did is the bedrooms were 20, so you subtracted 20,000 off of the sales price, and it brought it to the same quality, 3-bedroom, 3-bedroom. So this one must be worth 100,000. The same theory, how about if it's inferior? The comparable. So the subject is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but you're comparing it to a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. That's different. You should get more money for this one because it has an extra bedroom, extra bathroom. So what do? You add to this. If this sold for, let's just say 60,000 and a bedroom is worth 20,000. So I'm going to add the 20,000, but then it's also missing a bathroom. Let's say the bathroom's worth 10,000. Okay, now I'm going to add 10,000. And so I take the sales price of the inferior one and I add the things that are missing, and whatever value that ends up, that's what this one's worth. Does that, in theory, does that kind of make sense? I lose anybody? Okay, so that in the book, inferior, you're going to increase the price of the comp for the things it's missing. If the comp is superior, better, you're going to make adjustments going downwards. So here's a little acronym to help you. If the comp, the comparable, is inferior to the subject property, well, let me do each one. Come on, thing. If the comparable is better than the subject, you're going to subtract the things that are extra. And once you subtract them, whatever the value is, that's what your subject is worth. Now, if the comp is inferior because it's missing something, you're going to add the missing parts, the value of the missing parts. It's not like you're going to go and build another bedroom or a bathroom. Okay. So here's an example of comparing three properties. You got the address, when it's sold, how much it's sold for. Each of them have a conventional loan, you don't care. Each of them a normal sale, you don't care. They make adjustments, so the market conditions, if something sold a long time ago and prices are going up, you can figure out the average monthly increase. And if this one sold 6 months ago for 141, because it says it here, at today's market, it would be worth a little more if the prices are going up. So there's an adjustment you can make upward. This one sold 3 months ago for this, and again, you can make an adjustment upward. This one just sold 0 months ago, meaning, you know, recent, so you don't make any adjustment. Square footage. If this one is bigger than my subject property, I'm going to subtract the value of the extra square footage. This one must be smaller because they're going to add for the square footage. And this one, it's the same. So they're not going to make any adjustments at all. And you can go on and on. Landscaping, does it have a pool? Does it have a fence? You can go on and on. I used to do adjustments for mature trees or mature landscaping. There's a different value if somebody just planted a bunch of grass than a house that has, you know, mango trees, avocado, oak trees that are mature. You know, it's more valuable. Or a palm tree, because, you know, when you plant them, they're short and then they grow with the years. So I, as appraiser, I used to give more value, especially when I was trying to look for more value to bring the price up. I would do stuff like that. So once you make all of these little adjustments, and I'm going to show you with the math problems, I'm going to show you how to do it. There's another thing called weight. You're weighing the comps. And when you weigh the comps, you're judging how similar they are to the subject property. And when you weigh it, you say it as a percentage. Like how much weight, how much credibility do you give the first comp? So if you're doing a lot of adjustments, it's not that similar to the subject. So it doesn't really have authority in an appraisal. So the first comp, they decided to give it 20% similarity. The second comp, they gave it 30% similarity. And the third one, well, it's just like the subject property. Same this, same that. Okay, it's 50%. These three numbers have to equal 100%. And you can't say 0, 0, 100%. You have to give some value to the other comps, otherwise find another comp. When they do the math, they take whatever this adjusted price is, they multiply it by the weight. It comes up with a number and they add it together, and this becomes the value of the property. So this is the final number. So we're going to look, okay, this one sold for 141. This one sold for 136, 140. So these numbers are not the same as you came up with, but that's because you analyze how similar are these comps compared to the subject property. You make adjustments. Now, if they're from the same builder in the same subdivision and it's a new construction, they're all worth the same because a seller has to sell them for the same. If they're the same model, the only thing they can charge more for is if it's a bigger lot or a more valuable lot, like on a cul-de-sac or on the corner, that kind of thing. Okay, so the adjustment process, you don't have to memorize these. I'm just going to say you can make adjustments for different things. Financing terms, like if it's owner financing, maybe that's more valuable. Conditions of the sale, if the seller is contributing towards the closing cost, maybe that's more valuable. Market conditions, square footage, landscaping, but it goes on and on and on. Bedrooms, bathrooms, fence, pool, all those different types of things. Reconciliation is doing the math and finalizing the numbers. That's called reconciliation. And we are going to just talk for a minute about empty property. Valuing land. The way you value land is just find some other lots that sold, and you take whatever they sold for and divide it by the square footage to see how much the average square foot is for empty land in that area. And you figure out an average, and then you apply it to the subject property. So if you compare a bunch of properties, it's land. So all you do is take the sales price of other properties. They have to be other properties that sold. They can't be ones for sale, because the ones that are for sale haven't sold, so nobody has said it's worth that much. So you find recent sales because somebody paid that much for it. You divide it by how many square feet. That's the dollar price per square foot. You use that as a rule of thumb for that neighborhood, and then you multiply it by how many square feet the piece of land that you're appraising is. That one's easy peasy. This is an example how they use weight. So this comp sold for this much, this comp sold for this much, this comp sold for this much, but the appraiser decided how much weight they are worth, how similar they are. And every appraiser would have a different opinion. Maybe one appraiser would say they're all the same. If they're all the same, there's no point in doing weight, because if they're all 33 1/3%, it makes no difference. But if one is very different, so for example, you got the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and the only house that sold are a 5-bedroom, an 8-bedroom, a 6-bedroom. They are so different than the subject property that you want to give them very little weight, but all of it together has to equal 100%. So we're going to do a math problem so you can see it in practice. Any questions before we move on? It's a lot of vocabulary. Okay, I'm going to look in the Quizzy Wizzy to see if there's a question that we can use as an example. And we'll do it together. There's a bunch of ones. Let me just find which one is a cost approach. Okay, this one is cost. This partners. This one is income. This one is income. CMA for single family home is comparable. Okay. This one is sales comparison. This one is income. Okay, this one's income. Wow. There's only one example of sales comparison approach. So go to your chapter quiz for a moment. Look at question 18. Oh, come on. Okay. So this one, you should write next to it in your book that it's using the sales comparison approach. And how did I know that? I looked at, you are preparing a CMA for a single family home. So it's residential, has a 2-car garage. You've located a comparable house, comparable sales, that sold for 226, but it doesn't have a garage. If a 2-car garage is worth 18,000, what adjustment should you make? So what is the part that you never, ever change?
The subject?
The subject. So look at the answers. Which ones can it not be?
C and D?
C and D. Can't be them because you never, ever change the subject. Okay. It could be A or B. So going back and reading it again, you've located a comp, sold for 226, but does not have a garage. The single family home has 2 cars garage. The value of the garage is 18,000. So is the subject inferior or superior to the house that sold? Superior, because it has the 2-car garage. The 2-car garage is worth 18,000. So if I subtract 18,000 from 226, that should be the value of the property. So the answer would be B. You would subtract from the comp. I'm really disappointed that this
Is
chapter.
it B? Aren't you?
It's B.
Aren't you? Because the comparable is the one that does not have the garage. So wouldn't you add 18,000?
I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. I didn't. I wasn't paying attention. Yeah. The subject has the 2-car garage, so you would add the 18,000. Thank you. Somebody's awake. I'm disappointed in this chapter quiz that it doesn't have a bunch of examples because I want to show you. Let's see if back in the chapter itself. Okay, well, here's just in theory another one. The subject property has 200 square feet less. So the subject is inferior. And the market value area, you don't have to do the math part because all of the numbers are the same. But which 2 answers can it not be?
What question are we looking at?
8. But you don't need to know. What do you never, ever adjust?
Subject.
The subject. So the answer cannot be A. The answer cannot be C. It can only be B or D because you always make adjustments to the comparable. So it's saying the subject property has 200 square feet less. So the comp is superior. And it's
So it
worth
would be-
$20,000. So you're going to
It would be D.
subtract it. Right? D. Okay, but I want to go back in the chapter and see if there's some problems that I can kind of show you how to do the sales comparison. There's got to be some examples we can work on because the chapter quiz does not give enough. What's the cost? Sales comparison. Let's see if there's an example here. Okay, that's not even good. Okay, maybe we can find something here. Let's see. An appraiser estimates the value of the house has, okay, here we go. Number 14, we can do 14, 15, 16 as practice problems. Let me try to copy this. I don't know if it's going to copy and paste. Huh. Probably not. I wish I could have the whiteboard up simultaneously at the same time. Louis,
Are you
are
trying
you?
to copy and paste that into the whiteboard?
Yeah,
So highlight it. Are you using just Windows or not Mac or a Mac?
Windows.
So just press your Control C to copy.
Control C. So you think it will? It won't just highlight? Let's give it a shot.
Once you open a text box, you're gonna want to copy and paste it into a text box.
Oh, into a text box. Okay. Clean this up. Okay, open up a text box and then paste it, but make it bigger. Okay, that did not copy from the book. Yeah, it didn't copy. That's what I was afraid of. Okay, let me see how I can see it at the same time.
If you use Windows, if you minimize the Zoom window and minimize the textbook window, you can drag and scroll it to the left side all the way to the left bumper. It'll do half a screen, and then you can drag Zoom to the right side of the screen, and it'll do a half a screen, like a split screen. That's what I have up now.
Okay. Oh. Yeah. Hey, Louis. Louis. Louis, you called me.
Nothing. Here we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. You trying to do a split window?
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
We'll have to change this up. So just make sure
Okay.
that you don't have anything
Delicate.
potential on your desktop. Okay.
Well, it's minimized.
The minimize wasn't the proper word. There we go. And what's the other thing you want to see?
I want to see the whiteboard.
This right here.
Yep,
This is the whiteboard.
that is the whiteboard.
Okay, good. And then
Okay,
what you'll do is
I was on chapter 18 or 16, sorry.
stop sharing, reshare, and we're going to share the entire screen. Okay, so
Okay.
everything on the screen is going to get seen now.
That's not it. That's my textbook.
Yeah. The Zoom whiteboard.
Yes. I want to be able to see the math problem and the whiteboard at the same time so I can work it. share. I did share, and then I did, you first have to do stop share to the other thing. So share,
That explains it. Okay, one moment.
and then I use documents. And then you go whiteboard,
Whiteboard. There we go.
and
Thank
then
you.
you go share, and then you go to continue.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay, so.
and then you gotta go new. You gotta go new.
Yeah.
And then you just close that thing that says use whiteboard classic.
You want to click use whiteboard classic?
Uh-huh. Okay,
Okay, so that's the problem. You can't share the book because of the whiteboard is built in. You can't share the whiteboard and your screen at the same time.
okay. Dorian, how did you do,
It takes over.
it, Dorian, on yours?
I have Zoom on one half of my screen and then the textbook on the other half of the screen, but I just click the very top like you're dragging around the window and you have to hit the left side of the window. It'll go half screen.
Yes, we have that, but how do you share two things at the same time? Because I can't. The whiteboard is a share screen by itself in Zoom.
Correct. Yeah, I don't know how you could share both of them. I think it'll just allow
Oh.
you to
That's
do
what,
it.
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, because it's different being the host and sharing your screen than it is somebody just watching it.
Yeah, correct. Like
Okay.
I can see it on my screen, but I'm not
Okay.
sharing anything. So I'm
Okay,
I have to look into this if it's possible.
okay,
I just don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
okay, all right, no worries.
So you have to bounce back and forth. Okay.
Okay.
You have to reshare. What would you like to do?
I just want the whiteboard now. This is why I always like to have a physical book in front of me, and I can see. Okay,
You'll be able to see too if you need information, but they're only going to see the whiteboard. Once you're done with the whiteboard, then you need to click share again
yeah,
and
right.
reshare your.
Yeah, I know that part. Okay, go ahead and
Okay.
put the whiteboard on there, and hopefully my physical book I have in front of me is the same as the example they have. And
Well, you have the textbook. You have the dual screen, so you can see the textbook on the left.
okay, so I'm gonna look. Yeah, the example, yeah, in my physical book is the same. Okay, good. So I'm going to stop share and I'm going to reshare with the whiteboard. Okay, thank you.
Alrighty.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
But
Wait, Miss Linda, I had a quick
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
I think I'm having a little bit of difficulty understanding the adjustments with the comparables. Like for question 8, you said it was B, right? Was it B?
no, I think I just misspoke and we fix that. Hold on. I have to go.
Okay.
I have to flip to get back to that. On number 8.
Yes, number 8.
Okay, so it says the subject property is 200 feet less than the comp. So the comp is superior. This thing's in my way.
Okay.
So the comp is superior. If the comp's superior, I'm going to subtract the difference from it. You can only subtract it from the comp, not from, you don't touch the subject. So it's going to be D. You would subtract
Okay.
$20,000. So it's D, not B.
Okay, sorry. I think I missed that. Thank you.
Okay. Now, why is this? I think I messed it up with this. Trying to. All right, this is annoying. Okay, so it's over here. Let me take a moment and try to move Are you guys seeing my whiteboard or are you seeing the textbook right now?
Whiteboard right now.
Okay, all right, that's good. Okay, all right. So actually, I can see the book at the same time. Okay, so let's read this thing together. An appraiser is estimating the value of a single family home. As soon as I see that, I know that I'm probably going to use the sales comparison approach. It could be I use the cost, but so far I'm going to use the sales comparison. The house has 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Okay, so the subject property is I don't like the way that looks. Let me see if I can type it. Okay. The subject property is 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and it has a pool. Okay. The comparable, so the comp has 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, but does not have a pool. So no pool. Okay, let me make this a little bigger. Okay, so based on the market value and the comp sold for 184.5. Okay, so I'm going to make another box here. It sold for 184.5. That's the price. So the comp is 4 bedrooms. The subject is only 3 bedrooms. Is the comp superior to the subject or inferior?
Superior.
Okay, so it has an extra bedroom, right? So to get rid of the value of that bedroom, I look in here and it says, based on the market, the appraiser estimates the 4th bedroom to be worth $6,000 and the pool is worth $11,000. So I would take the sales price of the 184,500 and I would subtract the extra bedroom, which is worth $6,000. And that would give me 184.5 minus 6,000 would bring it down to 178,500. Okay, so that just brought it down from a 4 bedroom to a 3 bedroom, the same as my subject. But they both have 2 bathrooms, so no adjustments there. But the subject has a swimming pool and the comp does not. So is the comp superior or inferior where it comes to a pool?
Inferior.
Inferior because it's missing. So anytime something's missing, you're going to add the value of the missing component to the sales price. So it should have sold for 178.5 if it was just a 4 bedroom. It's missing the pool. The pool is worth 11,000. So I am going to add the value of the pool. And 178.5 plus 11,000 is 189.5. So the subject is worth 189.5. Oh. Let's do some more ones and see if it becomes more familiar. Okay. And then if it doesn't, then we'll just redo them again and again until it makes sense. Okay, so the next one, the subject property is vacant land. It's located at the end of the cul-de-sac, so already it sounds like it's better. A comparable lot in the same neighborhood sold for 27,000, but it's in the interior on a through street, which is less desirable if you didn't already know. You know, the cul-de-sac is at the end of the street. Why do people prefer the cul-de-sac?
More private.
More private and
Usually they have a bigger lot in the back.
it has a bigger lot and
Less neighbors?
less neighbors and it's safer. If you have children, you want to be in the cul-de-sac because people aren't driving through your neighborhood. When you're on the through street, people drive fast. At the cul-de-sac, when people see the end of the street coming, they slow down because they're going to hit the house. So a cul-de-sac is, for all of those reasons, more desirable. So it's saying in the neighborhood, there's this piece of land that sold for $27,000. Just based upon that only, do you think the subject property is going to sell for more money or less money than the one that already sold?
More money.
More money, because it's more desirable. It's the subject property is superior than the comp. The comp is inferior because it's not a cul-de-sac. So I have to figure out what's the difference in the value for something that's in the cul-de-sac. So I keep reading. However, the comparable lot is larger. The difference in the location is worth $5,000. Okay, so we do step by step. So the subject property is better when it comes to the location. So $27,000, do I add or subtract the $5,000?
Add it.
I add it because what it sold for is inferior. If it was as nice on a cul-de-sac as the subject, it would have sold for more. So far, the property that cul-de-sac lot is worth $32,000, but I'm not done. It said, however, the comp is bigger than the subject property. So the comp is now superior to the subject. So because it's bigger. And how much is bigger better? We read it and it says the size difference is worth $4,000. The comp is bigger, better. Do I add or subtract the $4,000? The comp is bigger. I lower it. I'm going to subtract the $4,000 because the subject doesn't have the extra square footage. You're making everything compared to the subject to make it look the same as the subject. So if this one has something better, you got to bring it down. If this one is missing something, you got to bring it up. So then I subtract the $4,000, and now I've determined that that cul-de-sac is worth $28,000. Let's do a third example, this one in the book, question 16 on this book, to take another shot at it. Let me give you maybe something that would stick better to your memory. If I'm trying to determine if I'm the average size, okay, I'm the subject property and I'm comparing my height compared to everyone else in the classroom. And some of you are going to be taller than me, maybe by a far shot, maybe by an inch, maybe by a few inches, maybe by a foot. And then some of you are going to be shorter than me. I doubt it. I'm 5'2". So let me draw, like, we got Linda over here. And then we got Dorian, who's taller than me. Right? And I won't say names, but somebody's maybe shorter than me. Okay, to make them all my height, I need to do something to them. So Dorian, I'm going to chop off something either from the head or the toe. Maybe I'm going to break your legs to bring you down to my height. And this person who's shorter than me is going to have to stand up on a book or something, right? To bring him up to my height. So I'm the subject. You're trying to determine if I'm the average height, then these other people that are bigger and smaller, they have to be adjusted to be the same as my height. So the ones that are taller are going to have something to bring them down to my size. The ones that are shorter are going to have something to build them up to my size. That's the same thing we're doing here. I don't know if that helped.
That helps a lot. Thank you.
Oh, yay. Yay. So when we do that with houses, we look at the subject one, the one that you're appraising, that becomes the standard for that appraisal. And we look at all the other houses that sold in the neighborhood. And we try to find 3 houses that are the same. If this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, we're trying to find 3 other 3-bedroom, 2-baths. Okay? So we do find one. So this is comp number 1. However, comp number 2 is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. It's better. This is the subject property. You never adjust the subject. Comp 3, let's say it's a 6-bedroom and 4-bath, and that is so different. We don't even want to use that because it's twice the size. It's going to be very inaccurate. But unfortunately, it might be the only 3 that have sold in the area, and we have to use them. But it's not fair to say they're going to sell for the same price. We don't just say, for example, this one sold for $150, this one sold for $250, this one sold for $600,000. We don't just add them and divide by 3 to average them because it's not fair, because the subject is so different than 2 of the comps. So we got to make adjustments. Financially, on paper, we have to make them look the same. So the way we do that is, if I'm trying to make everything look like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and let's just say, I'm going to say a bedroom is worth $20,000 and a bathroom worth $10,000. I look at my subject, I look at the comp, they're the same. I look at this one, they're the same, so I don't adjust anything. However, this one, compared to the subject, the comp has 1 extra bedroom. So if this one sold for $250, I'm going to subtract $20,000 from that sales price. And then I look at the bathroom. It has 1 extra bathroom. I'm going to minus the $10,000. So $250 minus 30 minus 10, the adjusted price is $220, right? For that one. So if that one was identical to the subject, it would be worth $220. Then I look at the last one here. Oh my gosh, it's so different. If each is sold for $600,000, if each bedroom is worth $20,000, there's 3 extra bedrooms. 3 times 20 is $60,000. I'm going to subtract. And then there's 2 extra bathrooms. I'm going to minus 2 bathrooms, so that's $20,000. So I'm going to take $600,000 and I'm going to subtract $80,000, and that leaves this one to be $520. That is very different. Now, of course, there's going to be other things. The square footage is going to be different, whatever. But let's just look at these. And so if this one sold for $150 and I don't make any adjustments, this one's $150. So this doesn't look good. The prices are from $150 to $520. That doesn't look reliable at all. That's why we do the weights. So if we use this as an example, which of the 3 comps is the most similar to the subject property? The first one. Which one is the least similar? The third one. So I decide as an appraiser, I'm going to give weight to the credibility of each comp. I can't say 0, 0 for 2 and 3. I have to give it some kind of weight. But as an appraiser, I can decide how much out of 100%. So the subject is the 100%. So how much compared to the subject percentage-wise do I want to give to comp 1? Do I want to give to comp 2, comp 3? every one of you can give me a different number and every one of you is correct. It's up to the appraiser to figure out how much credibility they want. So maybe me as an appraiser, maybe I say this is 60% reliable. And then I say this is 30% reliable. And I say, I don't even want to say this is 10% reliable, but I have to make it equal 100%. I could have given it 5% value and the other one 35. I could have done whatever I want and it's all correct. So what I do as an appraiser, if I want to weigh the comparables, this is the vocabulary, I do the math. So 160,000. Oh. Let me move this over here. 160,000 times 60% is 90,000. So let me see if I can do a text box so it doesn't look so ugly. Okay, that's that one. Now I take 220,000 times 30%, and that's 66,000. And then I do the last one, don't even need a calculator for that one. So 520,000 times 10% is 52,000. And then what I do is I add those three numbers together, and that is what the house is worth. So let's try it and see if it looks, reasonable. So I take 90,000 plus 66,000 plus 52,000. That's 208,000 altogether. So that is what the subject property is worth. Is it accurate? Probably not, because the one that was most similar to the subject is comp 1 and it only sold for 150. So maybe my percentages are not so good. Maybe I should have given 5% weight. So let's try that, because you can change these as the adjuster. I'm going to change the comparison. And let's see what that does to this equation. I'm going to say the first one is 70% accurate. I'm going to say this one is 25% accurate. And the last one's only 5% accurate. And let's do the math on that. Okay, the first one sold for 150,000. If I give it 70% weight, then the first one would be 105. I'm going to do the second one, 220,000 times 25% accuracy. It's 55,000. Oh, 55,000.
26,000 for the last one.
Thank you. 26,000. And then you're going to add those three numbers together. 105 plus 55 plus 26. It's 186, right? Okay, so then the subject property is worth 26. So every appraiser could have all different numbers and still be right. I could give the first one 90% weight. And the next one's 5 and 5. 90% accuracy, 5% and 5%. Let's see what that does.
135,000.
Okay. What's the next one?
11,000.
11,000.
26,000.
26,000. Okay. And add the three numbers together. And what do you got?
Oh, 172,000.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that's more similar. And it doesn't have to be perfectly 150,000, because maybe that comp doesn't look as nice and it wasn't as well taken care of. You don't really make an adjustment for it, but it doesn't look nice. So the subject property could be more valuable. But if I was the mortgage underwriter, I would tell the appraiser, you have to get rid of comp number 3. It's just so inaccurate that it's throwing everything else off. You have to find a better comp that is more similar and then reevaluate it. If they found 3 comps that were all 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and they all have either a pool or not a pool, if they're all the same, I don't need to make any adjustments. I would just take the 3 sales price and divide it by 3. Of course, I'm not going to use those numbers, but let's just say, for example, the first one sold for 150, the second one sold for 160, the third one sold for 170. What I would do is I would add those 3 numbers together. I would take 150 plus 160 plus 170 equals how much, y'all? 380? No, more than that. 480.
Yes, 480.
480. And then I would divide 480 by 3. And that equals
160.
160.
160. Okay, I can live with that. Of course, it's 160,000. So, okay, that looks right. That would be the average. So if you don't have to make adjustments, you can just average the 3 sales price. But if you have to make adjustments because one has an extra bedroom or missing the pool, you have to make adjustments to make them all look on paper like they're the same value. Apples to apples, oranges to oranges is the subject property. So that's how you do a sales comparison approach. It only works for residential property, not commercial or anything else, not for income producing, not for commercial, industrial, only for houses. Okay, any question on the sales comparison approach before we move to the other one? Okay, we're going to move to the next one. So stop share on that. Oh, it's 7:30. You guys want to take a half an hour break before we start doing another type of? Okay, let's take a break until 8 o'clock and then we'll get going, because once we finish chapter 16, I don't think 17 is that long. I could be wrong. Oh, chapter 17 is nothing. Chapter 17 is only what, 5 pages? Yay. So we spend, God bless you. God bless you and keep you well. You were faking me that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a break. 8 o'clock. I'll see you, and then we'll finish the math, and then we'll do 17. If we have time left, I'll give you a review of the school exam. Righty. Okay. The next approach we're going to discuss in appraisal is called the cost approach. And this is the simplest one. To figure out the value, you just have to figure out how much it costs to replicate. So sometimes builders will say, okay, I charge X amount a square foot, and you would just multiply that by how many square feet for the house. The garage is usually a different rate because garages are just empty space. So then you calculate what the value of the garage is, add them together, add the land, you're done. So cost approach, we're going to estimate the reproduction value. Do not confuse reproduction with replacement. Your insurance policy, if your house was burned down, you would either have what they pay you, how much it would cost to reproduce it exactly, or just replace it with something that is similar. So replacement is replace it with something that functions the same, whereas reproduction is how much to build it exactly the same as it was. So depending on your house, your policy, you want to make sure you have a good one for what your house is worth. So if your house has a lot of custom features, a lot of crown molding and marble floors and you would want your insurance policy to have reproduction value. If your house was destroyed, you would want to have the money it would cost to build it back the same way it was. Replacement is just to have something that functions the same. So a 3-bedroom, 2-bath could be basically a box. So it depends on what type, but question 49 in your school exam is so that you understand the difference. And it's a word problem. It's not a math problem. It's just saying, what would you call it? And you have to notice the difference. Reproduction is to make it exactly the same, and replacement is to just replace it with something similar. Now the math formula, like I said, it's pretty simple. You have the actual main house. Don't worry about utility room, entrance, porch. They don't do that. So let's say the house is 2,100 square feet. The builder's charging $80 per square foot to build it. You do the math, and the main building is 168.8. Then if they tell you the garage is 412 square feet times $25, because always the garage is cheaper, and that's 1854. So you would add those two together and you're done if the question is about the cost. And that's the cost brand new. What if there was depreciation involved? We learned in a previous chapter that houses, whatever you pay for it, if you divide it by 27.5 years, that's would be the annual amount of depreciation. If it's commercial property, you would divide it by 39 years, figuring out the depreciation on that. So if a problem compared to square foot is usually used for commercial property. So if I said that the commercial property is 10 years old, for example, how would I do that? Let me do a whiteboard. And share. Whiteboard. Share, continue, new, classic. Okay, well, that's good. I think I have. Yeah, let me move this over here. Okay, so let's pretend this is this is a residential building, and let's say it's 10 years old. So if we calculate the building is 2,110 square feet, like the example in the book, times $80, that's 168,800. And then you have the garage, 412 times $45. The garage is 1854. So the house is 187,340. If it were brand new. How many years do you divide residential property by?
29.
27 and a half. 27 and a half years. So if we take the new price and divide it by 27 and a half years, we could see that the property has annual depreciation of $6,812.36 per year. Okay, so if they tell you the house is 5 years old, you take the annual depreciation, multiply it by 5, and see what that total is. And so that would be, yeah, $34,061.81. So this would be the total depreciation. Does everyone understand how I got there? Okay, no complaints. I keep going. Okay, so this is the total amount of depreciation. It's not brand new. Brand new, it would be 187,340 plus the land. So you say, okay, so brand new 187,340 minus the 10 years worth of wear and tear. So minus the, 5 years. So $34,061.81, leaving you with 153,278. Let me just clean the board here. So after depreciation, the value of the building is this. What is the thing that's missing? This is what the building is worth. What is the building sitting on?
Land.
Land. So land doesn't depreciate. So you don't include the land price when you're doing this calculation. You just figure out how much does it cost to build the building new. And the way you do that is square feet by the cost per square foot. And that gives you the new price. And then you figure out, okay, much is the annual depreciation? You divide by, if it's residential, 27 and a half years. If it's commercial, 39 years. That gives you an annual amount of loss. And then you multiply that by how many years the building is. So you subtract depreciation, you get the adjusted price of the building. And now the only thing you need to add is the value of the land and whatever it is. And usually on the state exam or school exam, they just tell you, okay, the land's worth, 80 grand or 100 grand or whatever. And let's just say 100 grand just to make life easy on ourselves. So what is the value of the property using the comparison square foot approach? That would be 253,278, right? So that's how they would do also commercial property. Let's pretend that it's a commercial property. Let's pretend it's a commercial building that's $10 million. Okay, $10 million. And we're trying to figure out the depreciation. So you take the 10 million, divide it by 39 years. And that would be 256,410.26 per year in depreciation. So let's just pretend it's 10 years old. So when you try to figure out what is this building worth, you're not going to say it's worth $10 million because it's not brand new. So then you're going to figure out how much the annual depreciation would be, multiply it by how many years, and that would be the total depreciation. So if I multiply this by 10, that's what, 2,564,000. $10, sorry, $100. 0.00, right? Okay, so then you do the math. And the building is now worth 7,435,898. Again, what is missing? That's the value of the building. What's missing?
Land.
Land. So whatever they tell you the land is worth, let's pretend the land is worth $500,000. So you would add the land to the building. Am I missing a digit? Yeah. 3, 5. Ugh. 5, 8, 9, 8. So the new value with the land included would be 77,935,898. That is how you do value using the cost approach. Just figure out how much it would be to build it brand new and divide it by either 27.5 years or 39 years, depending if it's residential or commercial. That gives you an annual amount of depreciation. Once you know that, you multiply it by how many years the building is to figure out the total depreciation. The last step is add the land and you're done. Any questions? Some of you are probably saying, I just don't get it. I'll just read it on my own.
You divided by the amount of years, and then what was the second step again? I apologize.
So then that gives you the annual amount of depreciation. So then you have to multiply it by how many years it's old. Is it 3 years old, 5 years old, 10 years old? And I'll explain the next step after you understand this concept. So that gives you the total amount of depreciation, the value it's lost because it's not brand new. So the new price minus whatever has, depreciated, expired, the adjusted value, and the last step is to add the land. Okay, so let me share the book again. Okay. Now let's talk about some other concepts. This is not math, this is just a concept. When we talk about the total depreciation, you can use the word accumulated depreciation, accrued depreciation, total depreciation. All of that is the same thing. Now, depreciation could be what we call curable or incurable. And curable depreciation is something that for a relatively reasonable amount of money, you can spend, fix it, and bring it back to its added value. Incurable, if it's so far gone that the cost of repair wouldn't be worth it. So we're going to talk about different examples of this. And this is all vocabulary that appraisers use. So there's 3 categories of depreciation. There's the physical, the functional, and the external. Question 21 on your school exam this one might be the answer. Okay. So physical deterioration is the normal wear and tear. What examples of that? Paint. Once in a while, you have to do a new roof, appliances, carpet. That's normal wear and tear. Functional obsolescence is something that is bad design. And that's when you have to decide, is it functional or not? So for example, if I'm looking for a space to open a restaurant and I find a property, but it just doesn't have the right flow for a dining room, for a kitchen and everything like that. So that doesn't function for me for what I want to use it for. So what are my choices? I would have to redesign it, tear down some walls, make sure the walls aren't, weight bearing, holding up the ceiling, and I'd have to completely restructure it, or I have to demolish it and start out brand new. So functional is not physical deterioration if it doesn't work for what you're trying to do. It could be as simple as a traffic pattern. So for example, if you had an 8-bedroom house with 1 bathroom, that doesn't function. So what could you do? Well, you could get rid of one of the bedrooms, tear down the wall, make another bathroom. You could do that. That doesn't cost too much, and you could turn it into something that functions better. Or if it's a restaurant, you could tear down a wall, make open space, and then it could function. But if the cost of that is too heavy, that you'd have to, re-engineer the ceiling because the walls hold up the roof, then maybe it's not the best idea and go find another place. So physical is normal wear and tear. Functional is it doesn't work. So it could be a poor design, it could be bad flow, whatever. External is something that's not even on your property that you can't change. You can't change something that is in your neighbor's yard, right? So if your house is next to the airport, so sad, so bad, you're not going to move the airport. Complain all you want. You put a house near the airport. Or if your house is next to the train track or anything like that. Or if it's even near a high school and you hear that noise, from the high school, and on Friday nights, all the noise from the football game. So that's something on the outside of your property that you have no control over. And external obsolescence is always incurable. And on the state exam, I remember this question. It says, which form of depreciation is always incurable? External is your answer. You can't change things that are not on your property. Okay. By the way, if you see the word site value is a piece of land that's ready to build on. Like it might have the utilities already, connected and that type of thing. Raw land has nothing, but a site is something that's ready to be built upon. When we talked about depreciation, there's a concept called age life, and we look at effective age, and we look at another concept called economic life. So when we talk about depreciation, another thing to keep in mind, when we said there's annual depreciation and then we calculate how many years the building is old, that's not exactly fair because some buildings are well maintained and the owners keep it immaculate. And even though it's 30 years old, it looks like it's 5 years old. So you don't want to depreciate the value as an appraiser. You don't want to hurt the value just because it's a 30-year-old building and it's, if it's commercial, it's only got 9 years left of its life. So you can look at, okay, how old it looks. So effective age is how old something looks according to its maintenance and its wear and tear, if it was taken good care of. So it's 30 years old and maybe it looks 5. Or vice versa. It's 30 years old and it looks like it's ready to be demolished. So effective age, how old it looks, how many years old does it look, divided by the lifespan, which is called the economic life. So, for example, throw out a number. How many years do you think the average house in Orlando would last before it's kind of reached its age and needs to be demolished and something new?
40.
40, 50, 60? Let's say 50, okay? So if the economic life is 50 years, it's the lifespan, how long should this building be good for? And how do you know? You could ask a builder, hey, how long does the average house last? And, you know, they know how they're built, so they could tell you. So the economic life is the lifespan. And then the effective age is how old it looks, not how old it is, but how old it looks according to the wear and tear. So you take the effective age. So let's say it's a really nice house, been well maintained, and it looks 5 years old, and the normal house lasts is 50 years. Oh. Okay, come on. Yes. So 5 over 50 is 10%, right? Wow. My mouse is just not sensitive enough to do things. So if I use this method, then I say the property's lost 10% of its value. If I said the house is 10 years old but looks 40 years old, well, then it's almost at the end of its life cycle. And, you know, 40 over 50 is 80% of its value. So an appraisers adjust after they figure out what it costs to build it brand new. Then they see what is it worth because of its age and how well it was maintained. So you can take effective age, how old it looks, divide it by how long it should live, and that's this method here. Okay, the very thing is if you want to evaluate what the land value is, sometimes they'll just tell you, oh, in this example, okay, the land is worth $5 a square foot. Okay, how big is the land? In this example, it's 11,000 square feet. Okay, $5 times 11,000 is 55,000. So that's how much the land's worth. When it comes to land, you're not going to know what it's worth. They're just going to tell you. Sometimes in the state exam, they're really nice and they'll just tell you the land's worth 55,000. So the last step you do is just add the value of the land. But if they make you work for it, they might say it's worth $3 a square foot. And then you multiply that by how many square feet there is, and then you have the value of the land. The last step is you add the land to the depreciated value, and you are done. Any questions about that whole method? That's called the cost approach. I'm just curious because I only can see Dorian. Is everyone else there?
I'm here.
Okay, yay.
I'm here too.
Yay. You know, we've lost people every night. I mean, there's 5 of you left. We started with like 11.
Yeah, I noticed that.
You know, I don't know. Maybe they went to, maybe they sat in on Michael's class because of, you know, conflict and schedule or whatever. I don't know. The last method we're going to do is called the income approach. What type of property is it used for? The only type?
For rentals, right?
Rentals. And what's the only thing they care about?
How much money it makes?
Exactly, how much money it makes. So there's a big formula for that. It's called the stack formula because you have to do it in order. And we're going to learn it. First, let's learn the words, and then I'm going to show you how to do the numbers. You start off with the potential, as if everything was perfect, as if every apartment or everything rented for every single day of the year. You multiply how many units times the rent, and that becomes the potential. And you probably are wondering, well, why do they do that when they're selling? Because it's not really about the potential. That apartment complex was empty the whole year. There was nobody renting it because it's in bad shape. So that would not be attractive to an investor. You don't say to the investor, hey, this apartment complex is worthless. It didn't make any money. You want to tell them the pipe dream. So So the potential
Bless
is
you.
if, thank you. The potential is if everything was perfect. But because things aren't perfect, we're going to have to subtract from the potential what's called the effective. And that would be to subtract the vacancy. So from the potential, you got to figure out, okay, what's the value of the vacancy? We're not going to say the whole complex is empty because it would be, it would be zeros. So let's say 10% of the apartments are vacant. So you have potential minus the 10%, and what gosh, what results is called effective gross income. So far we're doing the stack. You got to start off at the potential. This is if everything was perfect, everything rented every single day. Then minus what was empty, what income was missed, whatever's left over is the effective gross, is how much you made before expenses. Are we good so far with the vocabulary? Because it's going to keep going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next, we need to subtract for what it costs to operate. So we need to subtract for the fixed expenses, like the flat rate, like the insurance, maybe equipment, whatever. And then variable expenses, which go up and down, like the utilities go up and down, if you're including that. Then there's a thing called reserve for replacements, which is really interesting. You might want to make a little note to yourself. Reserve for replacements is like a savings account that the owner puts a little bit of the rent money into the savings account in case anything big breaks. So it's a reserve for replacing what are the big ticket items, like the roof, the air conditioner. So the owner doesn't go and spend all the rent. They leave some of it behind to cover it in case things happen. But at the end of the year, maybe nothing happens. So that reserve account is still intact. So it's an expense only if you spend it. Otherwise, it's an asset. It's like money in a savings account. So you take the potential, you minus the vacancy. The result of that is called effective gross income minus the expenses. The expenses include everything: insurance, utilities, salaries, whatever it is. And the result afterward is called net operating income. That's the result. It's called net operating income. So the bottom line is net operating income. So here's an example. So they're just saying, okay, the potential for this rental property is this. The vacancy was 10%, so 10% of the potential. I subtract it, and what money did you really make was $71,820, which is called effective gross income. From that, they're going to subtract all these different expenses, and they come up with a total amount of expenses. They subtract that from the effective gross. So effective gross minus all the expenses. The net operating income is the bottom, and in this case, $34,830. So you do this for an investor. You say, hey, listen, why do they even bother doing the potential? Because you're trying to show an investor, hey, if this place was run correctly, if it was managed properly, it could bring you this amount of money. And the expenses are this, and you can walk away clean every year. In this case, $34,830. So an investor has to decide, okay, well, how much should I pay for that? What is that worth to me? And every investor is different. The investor will be like, for me to make $35,000 a year, basically, I'm just rounding up, what should I pay for that? So bear with me a minute. Some investors look long-term, some look short-term, and every investor is correct because it's correct for them. So some investors might say, hey, I need to make all my money back in 10 years. Okay, well, if you're making $34,830 a year and you want all your money back in 10 years, then you should be willing to pay 10 times the annual income. So the annual, let's just say 35,000 to make life easy. $35,000 a year, you want your money back in 10 years, 35 times 10 is 350,000. If you pay 350,000 for this business, by the time you pay all the expenses, you'll break even in 10 years. Okay, that's one answer. Another investor might say, oh, I want to make all my money back in 4 years. So same income. So let's just call it 35,000 times 4. So for that investor, they're paying like 120,000. If you're the seller, who would you be more interested in? The one willing to pay 350 or the one that's going to pay you 120? You know? So every investor is different. You have another investor that says, oh, I can wait 20 years to get my money back. So, okay, how much are they going to pay for the building? 35,000 a year times 20 years. They're going to pay $700,000 for the building. So you have 3 different buyers willing to pay different amounts, 700, 350, 120, and it's all the same building. So the value has nothing to do with the building. It has to do with the money the building makes. And that's how the investor decides what it's worth to them. So when they use this thing, when they talk about overall capitalization rate, what they do is they take the net operating income, this 34,000 we just figured out, and if you divide it by the sales price, or you could call that the purchase price, it will give a percent, and that's the percent that the investor gets back. So for easy, this one is giving you different examples. Same property, and they're looking at different types of income and different sales prices. If you take the net income divided by the sales price, this is what this investor is going to get. And so you look at the different rates of return, and of course, an investor wants to make the highest percentage. So if they look at it, they're probably going to go for this one. Oh, man, come on. There. Because this one is almost 11%. So this investor finds a property that happens to give 48,000 a year, and they're willing to pay 450 for it, and that's going to make them almost 11%. The same investor has 6 different properties to look at, and they do the math on each one, on what is the income, divide it by what the sales price is, and that's going to give this much percentage yield return of the investment to the owner. Any questions? Okay. The last thing we're going to talk about, I believe, in this chapter is the gross rent multiplier and the gross income multiplier, which is on the next page. The way you go about them is the same. I'm going to explain. Let me do a whiteboard because it's much easier to understand on the whiteboard. Okay. To figure out either one, you're going to do a fraction. And if you're doing gross rent multiplier, GRM, you're using monthly rent. If you're doing a gross income multiplier, you're using annual rent. So what you put on the top, on the numerator, is either the monthly rent or the annual rent, depending upon what they ask you for. GRM is the monthly, GIM is the annual. So you take, to figure out the GRM, you take the sales price, whatever it is. So here you do the sales price. And then the denominator is either one, GRM or GIM, whatever they ask you for. So GRM is the monthly rent. So for example, if the sales price is 400,000 and the monthly rent is 4,000. You do the math. And the GRM is 100. GRM. What does that mean? It means that in 100 months of rent, you've paid off the property. You've gotten back your investment. So you invest 400,000. How many months would it take to break even? You take the sales price and divide it by the monthly rent, and it would tell you how many months it would take. The GIM is if you just use the annual rent. So if the monthly rent was 4,000, the annual 4 times 12 would be 48,000. So you would take the same purchase price, that doesn't change, divide it by the annual rent, and your GIM would be 8 point something. Let's see, 8.33333. Yes, 8.33333 GIM, which means it would take you 8 years and 3-4 months to break even. So some people like to hear things in months, just like when you finance a car. Some people say, well, 72 months, and they're like, how many years is that? Okay, it's 6 years. So some people like information annually, some people like information monthly. But it's easy to figure out. So GRM is that they want the answer in monthly, how many months would it take? And GIM is how many years would it take? And the formula is identical. The numerator is the sales price divided by the rent. Do I use the monthly or annual? Depends if they're asking GRM or GIM. And I think, is that the end of this chapter? Almost. Yeah. That's not important. Yeah, it's the end of the chapter. Woohoo! Any questions? How many people feel like their brains are about to explode?
Me.
I do.
It's a lot. I mean, you're doing a whole book with like 400 and some odd pages in 2 weeks, a whole book. I mean, I don't read a whole book in 2 weeks. And it's all new concepts and new definitions. But let's power through and do chapter 17, because I want to have a little time left over to do a review with you for the school exam, if that's something you want to do.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, so let's let me share the book again. Alrighty. So this chapter only has 2 questions on the school exam, 2 questions on the state exam. It's a really quick chapter. There's barely any key terms, but this chapter is about real estate as an investment. Shouldn't it be the whole book? So terminology this is just vocabulary. Appreciation means the value of something goes up. Assets are things of value. Assets could be physical, like furniture, cars, money in the bank, or it could be an asset like good reputation for the business and if you're going to sell it. Okay. Cash flow is the money comes in and out. And by the way, this chapter is about businesses. So question 30 on your school exam. would you be interested in this? A rental property has an annual income of 100,000 and operating expenses of 110, which means it's losing $10,000 a year. Leverage, this word is the power of using borrowed money. They call it OPM, other people's money. So, you know, if you are looking to get a rental property and you borrow $400,000 to buy it, you're going to have annual income. But how much is borrowing $400,000 costing you? So that's when you have to decide. So it could be good. Instead of you putting money out of your 401k or your savings account, borrow money. If the percentage isn't that high and the rent is good, you'll make enough money to cover it. So leverage is the power of using borrowed money. That's all that means. Liquidity, if it's liquid, that means you can convert it to cash quickly. Basis is how much is invested, how much it costs. REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust. This is when you get a lot of people that pool their money together. Like this is common for doctors and lawyers that alone they might not have enough money to buy this big building downtown, but if they put their money together, so investors huddle their money together, buy up property, and then the people involved in it don't get a part of the deed. They are shareholders in a REIT, which is called a real estate investment trust. We know from chapter 1, there's 5 types of real estate: residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, and buying and selling business opportunities. So what are the advantages of investing in real estate rather than investing in stocks, bonds, treasury bills, a car dealership, something else? Why buy real estate? These are the positive things. There's normally a good rate of return. There's tax advantages from ownership. It hedges. In other words, it fights inflation. If I buy a building now and the prices go up, I've frozen my costs when I buy it. So you freeze it at that time. Leverage, I could borrow against it. And equity builds up. So that's what's good about real estate. What are some of the disadvantages? And question 79 wants to know which of the following is an example of a disadvantage. Well, a disadvantage is there's the illiquidity. So it's not like your banking account where you can just withdraw the money. With real estate, you got to sell it. To sell it, you got to fix it up. You got to find somebody willing to buy it. They have to be approved by a loan. It takes time. It's not like you can do it the next day. Other disadvantage is real estate is very local. So even though your building could be beautiful and you've decorated it phenomenal, if it's in a terrible neighborhood, your building doesn't bring its value. So it's very local, and you have to know the local market in order to not lose, a lot of money. A disadvantage is you have to have some expertise and you have to have somebody to manage it. So, and there's always risk. So those are the disadvantages. Let's see. I remember this one from the state exam. And the question was, which risk is related to inflation? And the answer is purchasing power. So the question was, which risk is related to inflation? The answer was purchasing power. What does that mean? The more prices go up, the less you can purchase. So with inflation, the power of your money is deflated and you can't buy as many products, goods, services as you could before. I think that's almost about the end of the chapter. Oh, there's one question they say, what is the similarity between a regular real estate brokerage and buying and selling businesses? And the similarity is they both involve some type of real estate, some type of property. That's the similarity. When you buy or sell a business, what's different than buying or selling a house? When you buy and sell a business, you have to think of the reputation. So that's something that could have more value. So if you're gonna buy a coffee shop, would you buy mom and pop's coffee shop or Starbucks? Well, Starbucks is a name, it's a brand, it has goodwill, it has a reputation, people want it. So yeah, it will cost a little bit more, but you know, the results are a little bit guaranteed. Don't confuse like words like they're saying here, this example, Kleenex. Kleenex is a brand of tissue. Not all tissues are called Kleenex, right? Just like not all bleach is called Clorox. There's different names of bleach. So, you know, don't confuse a brand name with what it is. But if it's got a good brand name like Coca-Cola, Kleenex, you know, Clorox, those things have value. So sometimes you're going to pay more if you're going to have a factory that makes bleach. If you buy the factory for Clorox, you expect to make good money because it has a reputation and people know Clorox. They're familiar with it. So goodwill, the reputation, customer loyalty, it has a value. It's not something physical, not something tangible. It's intangible, but it's an asset. There's another thing we learned earlier called going concern. How much would you pay more for a business that's still open and operating rather than a business that shut its doors down and lost all its continuity? Okay, corporate finance. They sell stocks. There's two categories. There's one that's called common stock, and there's another one called preferred. On the state exam, the question I had was, what type of stock is required on all corporations? And the answer is common stock. Common stock is the least you can have in a corporation. Preferred stock is sometimes extra for CEOs, as you know, as a bonus, but common stock is required of every corporation. Remember, there's only 2 questions from this whole chapter, so how deep you want to go, up to you. Income statement versus a balance sheet. An income statement is a financial statement that describes all of the income, just the income over a period of time. But the balance sheet talks about the net worth, which the balance sheet would add the income plus the other assets, such as the fixtures, the furniture, etc., etc., etc. Okay, that's when you want to appraise a business, they use these 4 methods, which you've already learned: comparable sales, cost approach, income, and there's a 4th one that's possible. It's called liquidation. So when you buy and sell a business, you could use any of the approaches and also a liquidation value. Liquidation is if you had to have a garage sale. What would it be worth if I just sell everything in the store? That's liquidation value. So on the state exam, the only question I had is said, what are the 4 types of appraisal approaches when it comes to a business? And you look for the answer that has all these 4. Or the question might be, what is the additional approach to value for a business? And these other 3 we talked about for residential, commercial, blah, blah. Liquidation is only for a business. I think we're done. 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 Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay. We have time. Are you okay if I keep going and we do the school review, or you need a little 10-minute break? You tell me.
I could use a
think-
10-minute break to the bathroom.
Okay. 9 o'clock, we're going to start the review. Take a break. I'm going to stay here. I won't start without you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is anybody still here?
I'm here.
I am.
Let me ask your opinion. To do the review, would you prefer it in order of question 1 through 100? Or would you prefer that I go through the book from page 1 to the end in the order of the book? Is it easier for you to take notes 1 through 100? Or is it easier to see it in the book and
You
what's
mean
your-
chapter by chapter?
yeah, like page by page, starting with page 1 until the end, or starting with question 1 till question 100?
I think from question 1 through 100.
Yeah, because I think it'd be hard to keep scrolling through the chapters and it'd be distracting.
Yeah.
Also make you dizzy because I'm going to be flipping through it. Okay, all right. I just wanted that opinion. So I'm pulling up the exam in that order of 1 through 100 and take very good notes because it's going to be very accurate. I won't tell you the exact question, but maybe pretty similar to it. If you have any questions, you can ask me while we're waiting.
I had a quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
For assumable mortgages,
Mm-hmm.
I know we discussed that we are able to assume if it's a veterans, what was it, veterans loan or
Yeah.
FHA loan, I believe, right?
Well, you can assume it if it has an assumable clause in it, that if there's no due on sale, that means anyone can take over the property, and with all the debt included. Veterans loans never have a due on sale clause, so every veterans loan is automatically assumable. And you don't have to be a veteran to assume it.
Do you still have to pay in the what they paid off already, what they have in equity?
Oh, yeah, so you take over the balance, and then of course that's the negotiation between you and the seller, like how much to pay for the equity. Because, for example, if my worst, let's say I have a $500,000 house and I'm a veteran and my nephew wants to buy it and he can't qualify for a loan. So he has like 50,000 down, and the balance of the loan is only 300,000. It doesn't mean I'm going to sell it to my nephew for 350. I might say, okay, give me the 50,000, take over my payment, and then pay me the difference, like monthly. So you can negotiate any price. But the veteran loan, you would take it over. When you take over a loan, doesn't mean the previous owner is off the hook. Just because you assume it doesn't mean it novates the person whose name was on the loan. So with the VA loan, they're going to keep the veteran on the hook. So if the person doesn't pay, then they're going to come to the veteran. But with like an FHA loan, you can ask for the word novation, which means complete substitution of the names, and then you would be off the hook.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Okay, is everybody back, Dorian? Want to start without you? Okay, all right, so we decided that we're going to go in the order of the school exam question numbers. We're going to start out, we're going to go from 1 to 100. I'm not going to tell you word by word what the question is, but I'm going to tell you about the question so you can figure out what the answer kind of should be, and make good notes, because then you can go back to your chapter and see what Michael highlighted, because what he highlighted, if it's just a couple words, So question number 1, what would you call it when you have a renter that just won't leave? They keep paying the monthly rent, but they just won't leave after the lease has been finished. Do you know what they call that?
Tenancy and sufferance.
Perfect. That's it. That's question 1. Okay. Question 2, wants to know what is the difference between a quit claim deed and a bargain and sale deed? So what's different from the two of them? So
The quick claim deed has no guarantee.
That's true, but how is that different than a bargain and sale? Because the bargain and sale really doesn't guarantee either.
I think the
The
quick claim
quick-
deed, it's something about the property owner.
Yes, so the quit claim deed doesn't even say for sure that that's the owner. But the bargain and sale has a season clause in it. And a season says, hey, I'm the owner. I have seizure of the property. I'm the one that I'm allowed to. This is my property. So it doesn't guarantee anything else. It just says, hey, at least I'm the owner. And the quit claim deed doesn't even promise it's the owner. It just says, I'll quit making a claim. Okay, number 3 is going to be a math question. And you're going to have to calculate how much money they need to bring to the table. It's going to want you to calculate the doc stamps associated with financing a new loan. What do we call that? The I, the N, or the S? Which one is the new loan?
The I.
The I. So this question is going to be sneaky. They're going to give you all kinds of numbers. It has nothing to do with the problem. It's there to confuse you. So I just want you to make a note. Do not fall for it. It's only asking you to calculate the intangible tax. The intangible begins with I. That is 0.002 of a new loan. So whatever the loan amount is, look in there to see which one is the new loan only and multiply that by 0.002 and you're done with that one. Number 4 wants to know which of the following examples is covered under Chapter 475. First of all, you tell me what's the only thing they really care about when it comes to the law? What kind of property?
Residential.
Residential.
So they're going to give you 3 examples. They might say a 10 apartment building. They might say 20 acres of land. They might say 3 empty lots that are zoned for single family use. They might say a gas station. So which one of those is covered by Chapter 475? Would it be 100 apartments? Is that residential?
Less
No.
than 4.
Yes, so you look at the one that's less than 4 properties on less than 10 acres. Okay. Number 5 is going to have a bunch of numbers, but it's not a math problem. It's going to say something about, hey, the sales associate got this offer, this offer, this offer. Which one should they present to the seller? And which one?
D, all the above.
All the above. Number 6, it talks about a sign and what information is not necessary. And they're going to give you things like they're going to say brokerage name, brokerage, broker, and the words licensed real estate broker, and then maybe John Henry sales associate extraordinaire. Which one's not required?
John Henry, sales associate extraordinaire.
There you go. Number 7. Okay, if a contract has been created, but there's something left that has to be done before it can go to closing, what do you call that?
Executory contract.
Yes, yes. Okay, number 8. It wants to know which of the following is not required to put on your application. So if you have a bunch of parking tickets, do you have to put that on your application?
No, ma'am.
If you file bankruptcy, do you have to put that on your application?
No, ma'am.
No. So that's what that question is. Which one is not required? Number 9. What 2 things do you add together to figure out what the new adjustable rate mortgage is? What 2 components?
The CPI.
It's the and the The CPI is the index plus the margin. The index is the part that fluctuates up and down with the market, the CPI. And the margin is the amount of profit that the lender wants to make no matter what. And when you add the two together, that creates the new adjusted mortgage. Number 10 is a math problem. You learned it tonight about economic life. And what you're going to do is it's going to give you the effective age. Remember, effective age is how old it looks, not how old it is. And you divide that by the economic life. And you figure out what the value of the depreciated building is. So brand new, it's worth X amount of dollars, which they tell you. And then they tell you, hey, for example, it's 5 years old. It only looks 2 years old, and it's expected to last for 50 years. So I don't care how old it is. I care how old it looks. And then I divide that by its lifespan. That gives me some kind of percentage. And I multiply that by the new building value, and that's my depreciation. Once I know the depreciation, I subtract it from the new price, and I'm done. Number 11 wants to know which of the following is true about the telemarketing law. And so they give you different examples. So first of all, it's designed to protect you from randomly calling strangers. So people get on a do not call list. That doesn't stop it from happening. But when are you in trouble for violating it? If you have any kind of previous business relationship, and how many months does it have to be less than? So you're not in trouble?
18?
18. The key is 18. It's the only answer that has 18. Number 12, which statement is true regarding a fee waiver for military? Okay, military don't pay the application fee for the DVPR. Boom. Number 13 is going to be a math problem, and you learned about it tonight. It's going to tell you about a commercial property that has a net income, and it's going to tell you what the gross annual income is, and it's sold for this. And so they want to know what is the gross income multiplier, the GIM. So they give you more numbers than you need. We learned tonight the numerator is always the sales price, and you divide it by the rent. Which rent do you use? GRM, that's for monthly, or if they ask GIM, is the annual rent. When you do the math, sales price divided by the rent, it gives you a number, and that's what they're looking for. 14. Which remedy for breach of contract is when you ask a judge to make them do it? Which remedy for breach? Judge, make them do it. Let me give you examples. So you ask for liquid damages, compensatory damages, specific performance, or rescission. Specific performance. Number 15, if a tenant vacates a rental unit at the end of the lease period, how many days does the landlord have to return the security deposit if there's no damage?
30 days.
30 days.
No, 30 days is you send the letter to tell them what damages they are. But if there's no damage, you have to refund the money within how many days?
15 days.
15 days. Number 16, which clause in a mortgage allows the mortgagee to advance the due date? What do you call that clause? If it's in default.
Is it
Acceleration. 17, in Florida, when a mortgage loan is paid off, what are you supposed to receive within 60 days?
Satisfaction.
Yep. I can't get no satisfaction. I tried. 18, the FREX authority to approve or deny an application falls under what type of power? Is it executive,
Leg-
quasi judicial, or quasi legislative? To deny or approve applications. Is it
Executive?
Nope.
Is
If
it
they
leg-
deny your
Oh,
if they deny your application, aren't they judging you?
Judicial.
Yep, quasi judicial. Executive is more like they decide how many hours the class needs to be, what's the passing score, how much to charge for the application, you know, that kind of stuff. Number 19, they want to know which of the following is an influence of demand. So they're going to try to trick between demand and supply. To have a supply of houses, I need 4 things: land, labor, money, and materials. When it comes to demand, I don't like the word, I like desire, because it makes you think of it. What affects my desire to have a property? The price, the amount of people that live with me, the availability of mortgage credit, my personal taste and preference. So this one is going to ask you about that. Okay, number 20. When there's a closing and there's property taxes to be distributed, who do you debit, who do you credit?
you credit the buyer and debit the seller.
Correct. Question 21. What type of depreciation is associated with ineffective architectural design? So a poor design is it called functional? Is it called external? Is it called physical?
Repeat that again. I apologize. I was writing.
Okay. What type of depreciation is associated with an ineffective architectural design? In other words, a bad design. Is it physical, functional, or external?
Functional.
Functional. You learned it tonight. 22. A licensee status with the DBPR is broker associate, and it wants to know which of the following statements is false. So just understand, what is a broker associate? It's a salesperson that has passed their state exam to become a broker, but they're not ready to open up an office. So they still work as a sales associate underneath a broker. So they're not allowed to do their own thing. They're not allowed to hold more than one license. They only can work for one broker at a time, just like a sales associate. Number 23 wants to know, what type of disclosure do you have to receive when you buy a condominium? And there are a bunch of different documents. So look in your book to see which one's indicated. Okay. Number 24, they give you an example of, you know, there's a contract and something happened and the deal didn't fall through, and they want to know, can the broker do this? So can the broker return the money, or do they have to go to court, or how do they handle it? So they're going to give you an example. I don't want to go further than that. And but you remember, there are 3 reasons when you can return the money without the seller's permission. 1, it was a HUD sale and your client was not the winning bidder, then you can return the deposit. 2, there's a rescission period. You know, you have 7 days for land, 3 days for any properties, 10 days for timeshare, 15 days for new condos. So if it was rejected within the rescission period, that's the second one. And the third one is the appraisal or the financing didn't work out. Any of those 3 situations, the broker is allowed to give the money back to the buyer without any permission from the seller. Number 25. They want to know what Chapter 475 does not apply to which of the following situations. So they're going to give you examples, and you have to see which one it is. Number 26, they want to know which person is exempt from having a real estate license. So we learned about a few
Owner
different,
developer.
could be an owner developer, could be cemetery, buying the cemetery lot, could be renting mobile home lots, could be someone working with the power of attorney with, for another person. All of those are examples. Number 27, the covenant of warranty forever. What's the only deed that mentions the future? It's the best one.
General warranty.
General warranty. There's other names it could be. General warranty, which is the and it could also be called warranty or full covenant. But it promises past, present, and future. If there's ever an issue, the seller will come back to defend the quality of the title. Okay, number 28 has numbers, but it's not really a math problem. It says they're charging a certain amount of interest plus a certain amount of points. And they want to know what is the real interest rate. So the interest plus the points. The points, for every point, it's 1/8% of interest. So if it's 3 points, it's 3/8. 4 points, 4/8. 5 points, 5/8. Number 29, they want to know what's false regarding a lien for unpaid commission on residential property. Well, remember that you're allowed to put a lien on commercial property. Just saying. Number 30. This one is going to be a math problem. And do you know the one that we just did in the book tonight? When it was exactly in the book, like exactly in the book, when it said you bought the property, the commercial property, 200,000, but the expenses to operate it were 211,000. Which of the following is true? It has a negative cash flow of 11,000. Literally, the one in the book is the same. We did it tonight. Question 31. In states that believe in title theory, a mortgage, and then you have to answer it. So in title theory, like Florida, the mortgage transfers the title to the mortgagee until the loan is paid off. Oh, sorry, we're lien theory. Title theory is Texas. Question 32. A seller lists his property with a brokerage. However, the seller reserves the right not to pay commission if they're the ones that find the buyer. That's called a what kind of brokerage relationship? Is it no broker, exclusive agency, exclusive right of sale, or net listing?
Right of sale.
Nope.
Net listing.
Nope. A seller lists a property with a brokerage, but they reserve the right to try to find a buyer themselves. And if they do, they're not going to pay commission. That's called what? The only two that have exclusive agency. Yep. Exclusive agency is like, I'm going to hire you as an agent. However, I've already shown the property to these people. If I sell it to one of them, I'm not paying you commission. Number 33. In Florida, what's the typical brokerage relationship? Is it no broker, transaction broker, single agent?
Transaction.
Number 34, if a developer makes a subdivision that has 25 lots or more, what do they have to give the buyer before they sign a contract? $35. Which statement applies only to a transaction broker? Or is the customer responsible for the actions of the agent?
No, ma'am.
Nope.
Limited.
Yes, sir. 36. How many days does a broker have to let FREC know that they resolved the problem and they no longer need an EDO?
10 days.
10 days.
10 days. You got it. Okay, number 37. What do you call it when you bring minorities into a neighborhood to make everyone pissed off?
Redlining.
No,
No,
that has to do with it.
steering. Right? Steering?
It's okay. Let me give you the choices: steering, blockbusting, or redlining.
Blockbusting.
Blockbuster.
Okay.
You couldn't tell by my busting. Oh, okay. Number 38. When real property is pledged as security as a loan, this is called what? What word means I'm giving this property to secure the loan?
Sorry, Linda, what was the
Collateral?
question?
It's that funky word, hypothecation. Real property, you get to live in it while you're making the payments. So you're saying use this house to guarantee the loan, but I'm not giving it to you. I'm going to live in it. The same as your car. You're hypothecating your car. I'm going to use the car to guarantee the loan. If I don't pay, take it away. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep possession. So hypothecation. Number 39. What do you call it when the seller does financing? Seller financing is called seller financing is called
I don't remember.
contract for deed. 40. Interest on an assumed mortgage is who do you debit, who do you credit? It's the same thing. You debit the and you credit the. Doesn't matter if it's property tax, rent, interest on assumed mortgage. You debit who and you credit who.
Credit the buyer, debit the seller.
Yep. Okay. What's the normal situation in relationship to interest and principal at the beginning of a loan? Which one's high, which one's low?
In an amortized mortgage, the interest you pay first.
Yes. So interest is high, principal is low, and after 30 years, it goes the other way. Number 42, what type of document may not be prepared by a real estate broker? They're going to give you a list. So you're not allowed to do mortgages. You're not allowed to do deeds. Those are legal documents. You're not allowed to do promissory notes. 43, what do you call it when you deal like this with somebody? Dealing at
Avid empire, or right? No,
caveat emptor is the Latin for
at arm's length or
At
at
arm's
arm's
length.
reach.
yeah, which means buyer beware, right? 44. They talk about the energy rating and what's not required. Is the seller required to do a test for energy efficiency?
No.
The seller's not required to do lead base, paint, rate on gas. If the buyer wants to, they do it at their own expense. Okay, part 4 of chapter 475 deals with what? Part 4. Let's review. Part 1 is about residential purchases. Part 2 is about appraisal. Part 3 is about selling a commercial property and putting a lien on it to get commission. Part 4 is about renting commercial property and putting a lien on it to guarantee your commission. 46. Which legal instrument allows you to act on another person's behalf?
Power of attorney.
Correct. 47, they want to know which authority does FREC not have, and you're just going to have to look at them and figure that out. 48, how many days is required to terminate a month-to-month lease?
7 days.
Nope.
1 month.
Month-to-month would be
You got to give them 30 days.
30 days. Week to week would be 7 days, you know? Okay, 49. What type of cost is calculated using similar building materials but not identical? Is it Reproduction or replacement?
Reproduction. No, no,
Reproduction is to make it identical. Replacement would be,
it's
you
to
know, make
repair it.
similar. Yeah. 50. What type of deed would most likely be used to clear up the clouds on the title? Would that be quick claim, bargain and sale, general warranty? Which one clears up the clouds? That's the expression, like little problems.
The general warranty one, right?
Nope. Quick claim. So imagine I'm having my roof fixed, but I don't pay them. So they put a lien on my house. So the roofing company is not the owner, but I get them to sign a quit claim deed because I want to get rid of them. So to get them to quit making a claim against my property, I negotiate, I pay them, and I get them to sign a quit claim deed. So they're not the owner, but they promise they quit making any claim against my property. Okay, 51, they're going to ask, which of the following is a broker not required to notify FREC in case there's a situation of conflicting demands? Conflicting demands is when the buyer and the seller are both fighting over the deposit. So you're supposed to notify FREC within 15 days, unless it's one of those, well, first of all, the first thing is, if you don't have the money yourself as the broker, if the title company or, you know, an attorney has it, that's one thing. But the other one is if it's within the rescission period, if it's, you know, the same reasons before, like a HUD sale and they're not the winner, if the financing falls through, you're allowed to not notify FREC. Number 52, you're going to calculate the acres, the northwest corner, the southwest corner, and the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter. So you're going to do the math. Number 53, which standard could be used for judging whether a fixture must stay or can it go? Remember, IRMA is the acronym. I stands for intention of the parties. R stands for relationship, like a buyer and a seller compared to a renter and a landlord. M stands for method of attachment, and A stands for adaptability. It's one of those four. So IRMA is your acronym. 54, which statement is false regarding HOA disclosures? Just read it in your book. 55 is going to be a math problem. They want to know the loan to the value. And they're going to tell you the loan amount and the down payment. So you have the loan amount and then you divide it by the purchase price, which is the loan amount and the down payment together. It gives you a percentage. 56, what do you call a piece of land the government keeps and it's less than a quarter of a section? Usually around the lake. What kind of lot is it? Look it up and you'll figure it. 57, which requirement is one of the essential elements for a valid deed? Remember, the person has to be of the right mind, competent parties. There has to be an offer and acceptance. There has to be some type of consideration, and it has to be something legal you're doing. So those four things have to exist for a contract to be a valid contract. Number 58, what do you call someone receiving the monthly payments for the mortgage? That's called what?
Principal?
No. What do you call it for the people managing, receiving the payments? That's called what? You are the loan.
The guarantor and the guarantee?
No.
Mortgager.
What would you just say?
The mortgager.
No. What do you call the collection company that takes the monthly payments? They are the who?
Debitor and the debit,
No.
right?
Lenders.
No. I mean, I almost want to tell you, but then I almost want to make you look it up. Servicing the loan. Okay, 59. What type of deed warrants only the actions of the grantor only while they owned it? What type of deed is that? Is it quick claim, bargain and sale, full warranty, or special warranty? Usually
Special.
used in commercial properties.
Special?
Special. 60. How is the purchase price entered on the closing statement? Who do you debit? Who do you credit? The purchase price. You take the money from who and you give the money to who? Who do you take
Borrow.
money from? You take money from the who and you give it to the who at the closing table.
Borrower, borrowee.
Well, how about buyer, seller? You take the money from the buyer and you give it to the seller. The purchase price we're talking about. 61 is going to tell you what a property costs per acre, and they want you to calculate what does it cost per square foot. So whatever it says per acre, you divide it by that beautiful number with 4 old ladies driving 35 and a 60, and then you get the amount. Number 62, how many days do you have to get a receipt from the title company if you give it to them?
3.
No.
No.
10 days?
10 days to get the receipt. 3 days you have to get it to them. And then you have 10 days to get proof that you gave it to them within the 3 days. So 10 days to get a receipt from the title company or the attorney. 62, which statement is true regarding title company holding? Oh, I already did that one. 63, right of survivorship is in which type of tenancy? There's 2 types.
Tenancy in common.
Entirety?
Tenancy in common is the only one that does not have survivorship. And somebody
Joint
else,
ten-
Entirety.
that's for husband and wife. And what's the other one?
Joint tenancy or joint.
Correct. 64, the mortgagee's title insurance is for what? Who does the mortgagee's title insurance protect? Who is the mortgagee?
The buyer.
No, the mortgagee is not the buyer.
It's the
But
lender.
doesn't it protect
The
the buyer?
lender. The mortgagee, the mortgagor. Remember, the mortgagor is buyer because they're the ones giving the promise. Hey, I promise I'll pay you. So they're the mortgagor. The mortgagee is the lender who receives the promise, in exchange gives the money. It's for the loan amount, and is it transferable or not?
Yes.
Yes, it does. The lender's policy transfers. The owner's policy doesn't transfer. Every new owner gets their owner's policy. What type of alienation is voluntary? By signing a what? Are you voluntarily giving up your property? There's 2 ways. You sign a what or a what?
The deed.
Deed. A deed or a will, and this one, a deed. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap. 66, what type of listing allows the seller to list the property with multiple brokers?
MLS or
Is it an open listing? Is it an
Open.
exclusive agency? Is it exclusive right of sale, or is it a net listing?
Open.
Open. Okay, what word? It's an expression in Latin. If you're going to appeal Frick's decision to take away your license, you ask for a stay, and if they accept it, then they get a what do they give you? It's called a what? You appeal, and if they approve to give you time, It's called a writ of supersedes. Question 68, a person licensed in a mutual recognition state moved to Miami 5 months ago. She wants to be a sales associate. Can she apply through mutual recognition?
Say the beginning part of that again.
Okay, she has a license and moved to Miami 5 months ago. Can she get a license here through mutual recognition?
No, because
because-
she lived more than 4 months.
You got it. 69, what action associated with water rights is when the landmass decreases? Is it called alluvion, reliction, erosion?
Littoral rights.
No, I didn't give you that. That wasn't one of the three I gave you, Dorian. It wasn't one of the three choices, but she's
I
right.
think it's
erosion.
erosion.
It is erosion because it's losing your landmass. Okay. Question 70 is going to say you got the deposit on, let's say, Wednesday, as a sales associate. When does the broker have to put it into escrow by?
The end of the third business day.
Yeah, which would be what? If you got it on Wednesday, what would be the third day?
Monday.
Monday. Yep, because Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday doesn't count. Monday would be day number 3. That's not the exact, don't write Monday down because I gave you a different day. The point is it's 3 business days later. 71, which law requires the lender to give a loan applicant an estimate within 3 days? RESPCT. Find out what it means to me. RESPA.
Rest.
72. What type of value takes into consideration the individual's equity and income tax implications? What type of value? You learned it tonight, and you probably didn't get it because, you didn't read it. Remember, there was like 10 different definitions of value depending upon the word in front of it, like insurance value, investor's value. Let's put it that way. You'll see it when you go back to the book. 73, which document can an absentee owner find the compensation structure for the property management services? The management agreement. Okay, 74. The 4 characteristics of value don't include this. So, characteristics of value, we said transferability was one. We said scarcity was one, demand, and utility. So those are the ones that are, and this is which one is not. So you need to memorize the 4 that are. DUST is like an acronym to help you memorize: demand, utility, scarcity, transferability. But this question is which one is not one of those. 75. What do you use to calculate doc stamps on the deed? What is it based on? The stamps tax. There's INS, the S tax. What do you base that on?
I know I'm wrong. The state, the schools. No.
No. The I, the N, the S tax. I is for intangible, N is for notes, S is for stamps. The I is for new loans, the N is for all loans, the S is for purchase price. It's the biggest one, it's 0.007. Okay.
Oh, you were asking the mills?
No, I wasn't asking how many. I was asking what do you calculate it against? What is it based on? You multiply the mills against what? The intangible tax, 2 mills times the what? The new loan amount. The 3.5 mills is the notes on all loans. And then the stamps on the deed is 0.007 times the purchase price. So if you pay cash for a house and there's no loans, The only tax you'll pay is the stamps on the deed, which happens to be 0.007, but they don't ask you how many. They just ask you, what are you basing it on? And it's the purchase price. 76. If a broker follows an EDO and it turns out Freck was wrong, what happens to the licensee? Nothing. 77. Okay, when you have co-owners and one of them dies and gives their ownership to a relative, what type of tenancy is that? Is it tenancy in common, joint tenancy, or tenancy by the entireties?
Tenancy in common?
Yep.
Common.
Because in common, it doesn't have right of survivorship. It doesn't matter who's the survivor. It matters what they want. They can leave it to their heirs. 78. A broker has conflicting demands. If they send a letter to Freck within 15 days, how many days are remaining to initiate one of the 4 settlement procedures?
15 days.
Exactly, because the total is 30, right? Now don't write 15 down because I mixed it up a little bit, okay? You got the idea. It's total of 30 minus however many days. Okay, 79, we learned it tonight. One of the benefits of investing real estate does not include this. So the thing that is a disadvantage for real estate, you highlighted it tonight. It's not liquid.
Liquidity.
Yep, liquidity. 80, which of the following properties are immune to property tax? Would it be a single family home? Would it be
Third.
a commercial? Would it be an airport? Would it be a duplex? Which one is immune?
The airport.
But you're right, the church is exempt. It's not immune. It's exempt. Only government buildings are immune.
Oh,
Um,
I was just gonna ask what the difference was between immune and exempt.
Yeah, so exempt is for a charitable or nonprofit organization is exempt. And also people who are 100% paraplegic, quadriplegic, they're 100% exempt. Other people are partially exempt through homestead or being blind or a widow or whatever. So first responders who are 100% disabled, they're exempt. Religious organizations are exempt. Okay, question 81.
Would VA's 100% disability be exempt as well?
Mhm. Absolutely. And disabled VA doesn't mean that they're paraplegic, quadriplegic. They could be because of, stress, so they're walking around, they look fine, but they're 100% disabled according to the VA. So they're 100% exempt. And when they pass away, their spouse still gets to keep the exemption. Same thing as first responders. That's new, by the way. Question 81. What's the opposite of northeast 45 degrees?
Southwest.
Yep. Yeah. 82. Okay. If there's an argument between a buyer and a seller and they agree to listen to the advice of a third party and their advice is binding, what do you call that?
Arbitration?
Arbitration. Question 83. They ask which of the following does not terminate a single agent relationship? Which one does not? So let's talk about what does terminate. What terminates death, destruction, bankruptcy, how about performance, because it's over. So they're asking you which of the following. So you're going to see examples and you're going to figure out which one does not terminate. Remember in the book it said something like extending does not terminate, something like that. Okay, which word may not be used in a team name? And they give you examples of different ones. I think the ones in the book, the ones you can't use were something like national, international, federation, like using the state name, like Florida, because it makes it look like it's something official. 85. If you have a contract where only one side has to perform, what kind of contract is that?
Unilateral.
Unilateral. Question 86. When you have somebody who's a tenant in a, what is it called? We don't have them in Florida. Oh my God, I just went totally blank. I always say it's up north.
Co-ops.
Cooperative. Okay, what does an owner of a co-op get so they could become a renter? It's called a what? What type of lease? Begins with a P. Proprietary. 87. Statute of frauds does not cover this. So they're going to give you examples. Statute of fraud applies to things that are in writing, but and anything under 180 days, you don't have to put in writing, you know, when it's listing agreement, but when it's over 180 days, you do. And you'll see that. Number 89, what do you call it when a sales associate works for several locations, but all for the same owner?
Like the group license?
Group.
Yeah. Number 90, which method of land description uses plat maps that are stored in the public records?
Lot and blocks? No.
Lot and block.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ah.
Good. So 91 through 100 is all math. I'm not going to do the math problems with you, but I'll tell you what kind of thing they are. Number 91, they're going to ask you to calculate how many lots can be built. And remember, we took the acreage and we multiplied that by 43,560 square feet to figure out the total square footage for the whole piece of land. But then they usually say like 20% is wasted for streets or 30%. So if 20% is wasted, then 80% is usable. So then you multiply how many square feet by the percentage, and that's the buildable. Then you divide that by the minimum size. Like in our school practice thing, it was like 8,000 square feet per lot, if you remember that one. So you take how many acres, you multiply it by 43,560 square feet to figure out the total square feet. And then it's going to tell you, you know, like 30% is at waste or 20, whatever it is. I don't care about the 30% that's waste. I care about the 70% that's usable. And that gives me the square feet. I divide it by the minimum size that the county says it has to be. And that tells me how many lots I can build. If it has some leftover number, do you use it? Like if it says 487.10.
No, that
you just-
usually goes dedicated to public use.
Exactly. Or somebody gets a bigger lot or something. Number 92 is they want to know what's the net operating income. We learned tonight to figure out the net, you take the gross, which is if everything's perfect, you minus the vacancy. That equals the effective gross income. Then you minus the expenses. The result is called net operating income, and that's what this problem is. Number 93, you're going to calculate the annual rent for property. They're going to give you information and you're going to calculate the annual rent. Number 94, they want to know the annual IRS depreciation. So according to IRS, if it's residential, you divide it by 27.5 years. If it's a commercial, divide it by 39. Remember, land does not depreciate, so don't include the land. If they tell you the purchase price is the building and the land, don't include the land. Number 95, they want to know they want to know the cash that the buyer has to bring to the closing table. So they give you the details about there's like a 80% loan. So if there's an 80% loan, the buyer has to come up with 20%, right? And then they tell you the closing costs, and then you subtract any deposit the buyer already gave, and that's the amount that needs to come to the closing. Number 96, you're going to calculate the special assessment. And if you remember, you're going to calculate profit or loss. So remember, you take the costs times the rate of return equals the sales price. And we did this yesterday. If you're missing something, you drag the other number underneath. Remember, 100% break it even. So if it says you got back 110%, it really means 10% your profit. If it says you only got 90% back, then you lost 10%. Number 97, you're going to calculate the new cost of the building. We learned that tonight. You take the square footage for the building times the rate, and then the garage has a different rate. You take the square footage for the garage, multiply by that, you add the two together, you're done. Number 98, and by the way, on the state exam, if they ask you to calculate the reproduction costs, and they give you a bunch of information about depreciation, do you care? No, because if you're reproducing it, you're making it new. You got it. Number 98, they want you to figure out how much you need to do. It's a net listing, and how much you need to list it for if they want to cover the cost of closing plus the commission for the sales associate. So you're going to do the backwards math to figure that out. Number 99, they want you to calculate the total obligations ratio. Simple. Total expenses divided by the gross monthly income. That's the rate. And question 100, there's only one question about calculating the property tax. This is it. So if you don't want to remember all that stuff about the mills and the school mills and the city mills and the blind widow, one-legged, if you don't want to, it's only one question, question 100. But if you do like it, calculate it. It's got an ABCD choice, so even if you don't want to do it, at least pick something, ABCD, you might guess it right.
That's the INS?
No. It's the property tax. So the mills times, you take the assessed value, the value the property appraiser says your house is worth, minus if you're blind, if you're a veteran, if you're disabled, if you're homestead, all the deductions. And then you multiply that by the mills to figure out the property tax. So it's on page 412. So you can look at it. That's it, you guys. And we did it in time. It's not even 10 o'clock. So woo-hoo! That was the test. So now that you know it's on the test, you go back to your book, you study just that, because you need to pass the school test before the state test. So go ahead and go back to your book, make notes, make sure you understood what those questions were about. It's in the exact order of the school exam, so make flashcards and practice. You are allowed to take the exam tomorrow if you feel ready, or any day after that. You just have to coordinate that with the school.
Are you guys only open Monday through Friday, or can I take it on the weekend? Can I take it this Saturday?
That is a great question that I don't know the answer to. I think because it's digital, I think you guys take the test on the computer, I think. And I don't know, computers work 24 hours. That would be a Michael or Louis question. Maybe you put it in the chat box.
Gotcha. Because I've been doing I signed up for that exam prep, so I've been doing the practice test and doing the flashcards on there.
I'm sure when you see the right answer in front of you, you guys will recognize it. It's hard listening to me and then just listening and coming up with the answer, because that's like fill in the blank. But when you have an ABCD choice and the right answer is in front of your eyes, you can look at it and you can eliminate the ones you know are not true. I'm sure you can pass the test. Okay. We're done. Okay, I'm gonna go definitely have some Hennessy or something. Oh, this is water. Good night.
Bye. Good
Bye,
night.
good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome. It's
you.
been my pleasure. I hope you survived well and you like it and you come back to us. Bye. Bye-bye.